Ugh. It's like the idea of going to a nightclub. You know how like loud that is?
Yeah, they're
And
not for us.
does not feel. We're live, we're being told. How is everyone? Good to see you. It's Monday morning. It's 10 a.m. If it's 10 a.m., we're live. That's our slogan around here. Not 10:05, not 10:03, not 10:02. As I'm looking at the screen, there's just a huge logo in front of Garrett. All right, we got the logo figured out. Garrett, why don't you tell everyone who today's show is brought to you by?
Come hell or high water, we're going to be on at 10 or 10:01.
Our producers are like, make it 10:05. Just play the freaking music. Put a huge logo up. Screw them. Album. Boop, beep, boop, beep, beep, boop, album.
Today's show is brought to us by the Utah Warriors rugby team. The 2024 Major League Rugby season schedule is out now. The Warriors season will run from March 3rd to June 29th, with the home opener against Chicago taking place on March 16th. Tickets at utahwarriorsrugby.com or 801-477-7652. Have you ever been to a Utah Warriors rugby game?
Oh, I thought you were still doing the script. Me? Yeah, I have. So here's what I like about Utah Warriors games. I'll give you a few things. One, that is what a real man is supposed to look like.
Correct.
Like, look at us. And then, like, you get right next to a rugby player, you're like, yeah, I'm not actually a male. I'm something. I'm some sort of part of the human species. But these guys, they're like, thighs are enormous. Everything about them is enormous. They're in great shape. They get to, like, wrestle around with other, like, good-looking, in-shape dudes.
Yep.
It's like the dream. Don't you just want to do that every day? Like, just wrestle with, like, really dudes with, like, huge thighs?
It'd probably be better than what we do on our daily occurrences in life.
I honestly think prison would be better than what we do. Honestly, like, we get a little rest in.
Yep.
That'd be nice.
We'd get 3 meals.
3 meals.
Of
I don't
one.
get 3.
Nope.
Just a nice, like, and probably, like, some intimacy that I also don't have, just to be honest with you. And so, yeah, I think we're bottom of the barrel over here.
No, last week I pulled 2 cases of cookies out of the garbage in our office that were a month old.
And you ate them.
And that's what I've been eating over the weekend.
That is so dark.
I don't think if you're a professional rugby player, you have to do that.
Utah Warriors are fantastic. I love the stadium out there in Harriman. The whole experience is a great time. You can watch them live, but on TV or something.
Oh, yeah.
But if I'm being honest, go there.
Yeah.
It's an experience unlike any other. You will probably go 3 or 4 times without knowing the rules, as I have.
Yeah.
And every piece of it is like, yes, this is incredible. I love it. Whatever's happening out there. These men are so good looking. And they're so much bigger. They're so much more manly than I am.
Yep.
That I'm in.
Yeah. Well, I mean, those are some interesting answers, and I'm sure the Warriors staff is going to make some notes of that.
They're like, pull the sponsorship. What is going on? Why do they keep talking about their thighs?
I thought you would enjoy the sportsmanship and the speed, but you really focused on those thighs today.
I really just like I really just am into rugby players. I don't get how
They're awesome, and they have like really good manners. The sportsmanship is
don't
really
marginalize
great.
What I like.
I can't. I shouldn't, and I won't. All right.
Thank you, Utah Warriors. Everyone, check them out. Seriously, it's actually a really great sport and organization, and it's cool that we have a Major League Rugby team. Yeah. Everyone's like, "Oh, we only have 2 Major League teams, RSL and the Utah Jazz." Actually, we have 3.
Yes.
Major League Rugby, Utah Warriors. Check them out. And you say there's a new season coming up?
Yep. March 3rd through June 29th. They should have like 7 to 8 home games. And it's as much fun as you could ever hope to have. And even if you don't understand the rules, you'll understand 80% of the game without like the nuances. And then you kind of fill those in after going once or twice. Tons of fun. All right. A little bit of news. Silicon Slopes doesn't win very often, as we know, like cookies in the trash. No.
I would venture to say we've never won until recently.
And what we won was the Movember
Oh, is this it?
Dodgeball Championship.
Zoom in on that, Weston. Give him a good look at that.
So
look at that.
This will have our team name engraved here once it gets back. But Russ Babcock from Adobe put on the tournament.
The dodgeball tournament. I think you missed that. Silicon Slopes won a dodgeball tournament last week at Adobe.
It's for Movember, even though it was in February because of COVID. We've had to take a 3.5, almost 4-year hiatus. The team was comprised of a few conscripts. One kind of older, fatter dude, middle-aged, and then a bunch of young, full of life, 19 to 24-year-olds.
How did you do?
I think I did just fine.
The Silicon Slopes channel was going wild, the Slack channel.
Yeah.
And most of the comments were pretty demeaning and degrading about you specifically.
I was directing traffic and more of a field general. But you cannot...
How many people did you get out?
A couple. I got somebody on the old throw the ball high in the air, and as they're distracted, somebody else nails them.
Ooh, that's cool.
I also took one off the head on purpose, because if you hit somebody in the head, you're out. So sacrifice the body for the team.
Did you give people your General Patton speech you always give? Like, imagine we're about to storm Normandy. I'll be Eisenhower.
Yeah, I did. You're well versed in that one. I've given that one a lot. But the young little whippersnappers responded beautifully. We relied on speed and youthful vigor, and we beat teams as, venerated as Observe Point, Entrada, Cricket, just weekend warriors playing at the height of their abilities.
That is actually impressive. Well done. Well done to the team that won.
Yep.
The young kids. Who are these kids? We don't have everybody you described is like, I'm trying to think of like who works here.
Some of them work here.
Like incredible.
Harley and Bo and
Harley.
Sam.
Okay. Good job, guys.
Yep. So a rare victory for Silicon Slopes, but we'll take them as they come.
Oh, yeah. Seriously, did you give him the Normandy speech?
Yeah. And things got a little bit hairy there towards the end. It was double elimination, and we got ran on a first game, and it was, all right, guys, just calm down. Slow is smooth.
When Eisenhower was, the day before D-Day, Eisenhower brought all the troops together. And it's like, what is he talking about? Garrett, just like stay in the back. Just stop saying we should do like peekaboo moves. Or just like throw it high and low. And like somehow you're General Eisenhower.
Yeah. We're surrounded, and it's just us against
For those who don't know, Garrett legitimately has this speech where he gives it to the Silicon Slopes team probably like once a month. It's both. It's crazy. He includes both Patton and Eisenhower. He's like, Eisenhower did this. And then he's like, we have to role play. It's like a marketing. It's like, hey, who's going to post on social media this week? He's like, all right, let's back up. I'll be Eisenhower. Who wants to be Patton? We're like, what? He'll start like drawing on the whiteboard. Like, this is where the allies are. I'm like, wait, what? I just think we need a tweet at 10 a.m.
Yeah. But a lot goes into sending that, as we've
Silicon Slopes has like 3 things. We have like a newsletter, we have a Twitter account, and now we have this.
Yeah.
We're not storming Normandy.
Yeah. I think oftentimes
I think I played Patton once. No, I was Eisenhower and you were Patton.
Yeah. Those were the good old days. The good old days.
Yeah, I encouraged that for a few hours, which was really fun.
We really need to get some new material to motivate the troops. So, anyways, riveting content there. Quick victory for Silicon Slopes. We'll find a little bit of humor in this, but it's probably not funny if you favor free elections or live in Russia. Vlad Putin's up for re-election.
Good for him.
What are the chances?
Bad for him? Good for him?
Well, for him, he's loving every minute of it. He's had a good 24-year run. If you had to bet if there'll be fair elections, would you bet yay or nay?
I don't. Probably as fair as ours. Whoa! Oh, coming in hot on a Monday.
Yep.
No, I'm just. Of course, they're not fair. I mean, or they are. I don't know. He's actually quite popular in Russia, according to polls.
Yeah.
But yeah. There. I think. Are you asking like outcome guaranteed? It's for sure.
Yeah.
Gonna be, yeah.
So the quote, Wall Street Journal, I believe, in Russia's coming presidential election, the candidates running against Vladimir Putin are confident of one thing: their certain defeat. A quote from one of the candidates: "I don't dream of beating Putin. What's the point?" Leonid Slutsky, the leader of Russia's Liberal Democratic Party, or LDPR, said after registering his candidacy in December. Andrei Bogdanov from the Russian Party of Freedom and Justice was more blunt when he asked if he can win. Of course not. Do I look like an idiot?
That's cool, actually. What a weird thing for. Yeah, all right.
So, like,
Tucker Carlson's in Russia to interview this dude if he has not already.
That's what I heard. Pretty big get. Little disappointed that we weren't called upon to do that.
I think it was between us and Tucker, and they're like, you know what? I think like 4 people watch you guys.
Yeah.
So we're going to go with Tucker, who owns Twitter or X or whatever it's called now.
And the 10 a.m. Mountain Time start was a bit problematic.
And we're like, we're not going anywhere. Let me, just real quick, Putin. I'm Eisenhower. You're Patton. Like, he's like, what? I'm Putin. I'm actually like an actual figure in history. You guys are idiots.
Yeah. You never know, though.
By the way, we have a guest today, and it
here.
is an incredible guest. One of the biggest, most prominent guests we will ever have in the history of this show. So excited to have him on. Ryan Westwood, the CEO of Fullcast, is here in studio with us today. Ryan, how are you?
I'm so good. Thanks for having me.
So you did something incredible recently. You raised, it's got to be the largest seed round in Utah history. Are we calling it, it's a seed round, right?
Yeah. Seed round.
I can't think of anything bigger. And so you raised the largest seed round in Utah history just recently. Tell us how that came together. I mean, a lot of people, if they don't already know, should know you. You've probably done what, 3 or 4 really successful companies. Most recent being Simplus, with a huge exit there. You could retire, go to Hawaii. You decide not to. You do Fullcast, which is we're going to get into what that is. But how did you put together the round? I really want to talk to the people. A lot of people listening today are like, how do you raise money in this environment?
Yeah.
Should you raise money? What are the different ways to raise money? And you are an expert, I believe, in those things.
Thank you, Clint. And thanks for having me on, guys. A couple thoughts that I have. One is extremely fortunate that I have had investors we've returned money to before for this environment. So for entrepreneurs listening, if they saw the round, I want them to see behind the scenes. And one of them is we raised from a lot of people who we've made a lot of money in the past, and that helped a ton. So it was kind of an unfair advantage we got with that, right? And maybe we've worked for that, but that was one big element. The other thing, if you look at the way we raised the capital, very unorthodox, because when you raise 34 million, you usually have a large VC, sometimes in Utah, a lot of times outside of the state, that's anchoring it. What made it really, really unique is we had a lot of local entrepreneurs involved in the round, and we put a pretty good sized check in ourselves. So as founders, we did $9 million. So if you're also an entrepreneur looking at it and you're like, how did he raise this round? Well, we also put 9 million of the 34 in. So we raised really 25. So the reality is we put up a significant amount of our own capital from our efforts in the past. And then we also raised from people we've returned money from in the past. So those 2 elements, if you just saw the headline and you didn't know that, I want you to know that as an entrepreneur that's coming up, there was some major pieces to it. So yeah, so those are 2 of the big elements, Clint, was our own capital we put in. and then existing investors.
I want to get to like the entrepreneurs and people within the ecosystem we put in, because I think that story is incredible as well. But who was your lead fund?
Okay, so Kent Matson and Epic, they put a significant sum, over $6 million in. So they were the second largest check. And then the next largest check was a group out of Boston called Companion. And then we had True Blue and some in the Bay. So we really spread out a little bit of the capital from areas on each coast, and then anchored by Kent, who's backed me a few times. Great to have him again on the board.
Kent's such a great guy. Epic's such a great. I actually saw Kent at the Jazz game. He was the other side just last night. I was like, man, that's a good dude.
One thing that's great about Kent, sometimes you'll hear people bad mouthing certain entrepreneurs. And a lot of time, I think when I listen, there's usually not a lot of wood behind the arrow. It's usually envy. A lot of people that are trying to come up and they see another entrepreneur, man, that guy did this and his, whatever it is in his personal life or whatever, instead of just focusing on their own, building their own careers. And Kent will never badmouth another entrepreneur. I've heard other people say things, and he'll always cut them off. And then he will always say, look at what they've done for Utah. And he'll talk about it. Nobody champions entrepreneurs more in, out in front of people or in quiet like Kent. That's what I love about Kent is he truly, you can see, he truly gets excited about and wants to support great entrepreneurs.
As someone who's had like offices and companies that are like global and things like that, is that unique to Utah? That whole like envy, or kind of like to our faces we're really nice, but then like in closed doors, like actually that person sucks. Like is that unique to us, or is that just human nature?
I think it is human nature, but I do think to a degree it's a little bit worse here. Yeah. There's something about to your face nice, behind your back comments.
It's actually so cool.
And it's interesting that the element that makes it most different, I think the envy is probably something that is in most ecosystems. The one thing that's unique is the personal attacks on people's personal lives.
Yeah.
That's where it's like, yeah, he's a really great entrepreneur, but look what he did at home. And to me, I feel like that is where you cross the line. Like, judge that entrepreneur based on it, how he's done as an entrepreneur, but leave their personal life out of it.
Yeah.
Let them have that. The other thing is, you get older, is you realize that stuff's complicated. And getting in balance in your life in all areas is super complicated and hard. And if we're all honest about it, we've all been way off balance with our families at certain points, with entrepreneurs. Like, if I'm honest, I'm not a perfect guy, and I've been off balance in either my spiritual life or in my family life or my work life at different times. It ebbs and flows, and I'll rev up some and down others, but I've never had a perfect balance. And so for me to be, and you don't know behind the scenes too, what's happened. Yeah. And so it's amazing to me where they'll have a smidgen of information about their personal life, and the way that can be taken and exploited. Like, just the advice I would give to other entrepreneurs is, you're so much better off focusing any energy and effort you have on your own like aspirations and dreams and what you want to accomplish. Any minute you spend trying to pick apart another person's personal life is wasted. And there's two things I've learned. One, there's a bad result either way. You either put yourself above them and exercise a certain amount of arrogance, or you put yourself below them and you're envious of them and mad. Either way, the result is bad feelings. There's zero good that comes from trying to tear apart another entrepreneur. I don't see any upside. Yeah. So
in your experience, are like, when you hear someone do that, and it happens frequently in our community, don't you just automatically like, this isn't real? They've got some maturity to go through. Like, this person has not gone through the ringer yet. Like, how could you possibly know or say? Like, whenever I hear someone like really going hard at someone, I'm also, see me in 5 years.
Yeah.
If you're still around.
Yeah. If you're still around, and you kind of think, man, like you said, maybe some of the maturity and some of the struggle of life hasn't settled in on you enough to get more of a sense of humility, like, and respect for life and effort and just privacy of people. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't build community off of a negative. Everyone needs to like you can get like, oh, I hate X group in this community, and so like, hey, everybody who hates this group, let's go after them. And then you've got like a percent of the community, and the 99% is like, oh, we don't care. We like that group.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like that's why you guys are all getting together, is like because you don't like a certain group. That's weird.
It's also, to me, a sense of gratitude for how this ecosystem is built. You know, a lot of times I'll see a younger entrepreneur in their mid-20s does a quick $5 million seed round in Utah. And I want to look at him and say, okay, your options 15 years ago, these weren't here. The guys were going to Sand Hill Road and knocking on doors, or they had no options or very few options. Word Perfect, Novell, and then you see like even Pelion, right? He came out of Novell and now he's doing the venture capital work. Or Josh James, and you see Adobe in that big building and what that's brought to Utah, right? Or Todd Peterson. These guys made it possible for us to come up where we are. And I think understanding and appreciating the history of how we got to here, and how you have 15 VC options and you raise a quick $4 or $5 million seed round. You do that on the backs of the entrepreneurs who got this ecosystem to where it is today. Without them, that's not happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's true even for the VCs themselves, right? Like in their pitch to investors, they're putting Qualtrics is coming out of here, Omniture's come out of here, Vivint's come out of here. I mean, their pitch is like, look at what's been built here. And it's these entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs have to be at the center of a startup or tech community or business community. Otherwise, it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
Really.
You're in an interesting position that you've gone through this multiple times. I'll venture to guess you might be in your early 40s.
Sure.
Perhaps that's illegal, but
It's all fine.
The first time I pitched a deal, I was at the University Venture Fund to Kent Madsen. It was clearly evident that something was different between him and me, right? He was doing the math in his head. He didn't need reminders on anything, possibly like a photographic memory. Trial by fire, and I was intimidated. And it wasn't even, we were trying to get a deal through the investment committee. How old were you the first time you were in that position where it's like, I'm going to get the pitch deck, I'm going to work the network, I'm going to do everything I can to raise that money? And you already mentioned the differences now, right?
Yeah.
Kind of a good head start to have made people money, and you've got a little bit of gray in the hair and that experience. But what was it like drawing the comparison
Between the two?
Yeah, the differentiating factors there.
Yeah. It's a very different pitch. The thing that I did early on, and I'm just going to say all the things I did wrong because I think it's helpful. I did a pitch event. I don't know if you remember. It was called Grow America.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember Alan?
It's not Ashton. I want to say Ashton, but
it's not.
He's up there in
Ogden.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
Legend.
Hall. Thank you.
Alan Hall.
So,
legend.
Yes. So Alan Hall does this Grow America event. I show up, and that's where my first legitimate pitch was. And a couple of things I did. One, I rushed it. So I was like, one thing you can tell about an experienced entrepreneur is they're like, I'm going to go at my pace and I'm going to take my time because you're here to listen.
Yeah.
Right? When you're nervous and you're like, oh my gosh, this person's so much more important and I got to tell them and I only have so much time. That was me. And so I rushed it. I went super fast. I was blazing through my pitch. And when I got done with it, I was like, man, I hope anyone understood what just happened there.
Yeah.
So that's one of the subtle differences is now I slow down and I take the time to answer their questions, to listen to them. And one of the big things that I find is with any kind of pitch, just in selling software, services, or raising money, slow down and understand who you're talking to. That is the biggest thing that I see young entrepreneurs. They don't understand the stage that the investor invests in. They don't understand the industries. They have specialties. They don't understand how many board seats they already sit on. They don't understand the timing of the cycle of their fund. They have to surgically think through how that fund works, how that venture capitalist thinks, and then come with a presentation that is truly tailored to them. What I see entrepreneurs do is they give the same pitch to the same investor over and over again. And it's a really poor, what you're going to do is you're going to end up being the entrepreneur who brags about how many times you had to pitch to get what what you want to do is give as few pitches as possible to raise your money, not be the entrepreneur who's like, man, I presented 150 times. To me, that means that you were ineffective in your pitch to some degree.
Sure.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this, because as an organization who does a lot of pitch competitions and kind of got started doing around that, are they still worth it? I don't know. It's kind of a different era.
The pitch competition?
Yeah, is it worth it? Because you were saying like, hey, I did Alan Hall's Grow America one.
Yeah.
Are they still, they used to really matter, and maybe I'm out of the loop here. And we do them. By the way, we do them.
I mean, Clint, if somebody's out of loop here, it would be me, not you. I would say that what it did is just give me an opportunity to articulate the value proposition and the idea. It gave me a stage or an opportunity to think through it. If
there's value,
I didn't raise any money at that event. I did a pretty poor job, but the value for me was learning what I did well and what I did wrong.
Yeah.
And so I think that's really the value more than the capital is just, I would tell entrepreneurs, it's a way to think through your business. I mean, instead of looking at raising money as, okay, I'm putting this presentation together to get capital, see it as I'm putting this presentation together to better learn my business. And that leads me to another thought that I've had a lot lately, which is there's a really big difference between a hardened founder and a friendly founder. And let me articulate that. There's a lot of friendly founders in the entrepreneurial community right now who are locked in on the ethos of being an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. And they love to talk about, they even have certain buzzwords that you hear. They like to talk about the lifestyle of being an entrepreneur. Real entrepreneurs don't talk about the lifestyle of being an entrepreneur.
Because, by the way, it sucks.
It does. Yeah. And if you're out there focused on that, it tells me you're not focused on the right things. If you're a true operator, you're focused on operating your business. And the big difference I see between a hardened founder and a friendly founder is that you understand that the business needs to actually become a business. See, the thing about the friendly founders is they'll list off that they gave for Christmas all their employees new MacBooks and $2,000. The problem with that is the music stops eventually. Mm-hmm. And the hardened founders see it. So you start with the end in mind. Everything needs to be profitable. I need to run a tight, good business. This capital can be allocated to these certain things, but eventually it won't be here to allocate. And that's the difference, I think. Not that you can't be friendly, but you understand because you've been through, you're kind of hardened. You understand that this capital is finite, that it's a resource you have for a time. But if you misuse it or misallocate it, or you're not thinking with the end in mind, that you eventually have to be profitable, you can overallocate and make big mistakes. And then what happens is lots of layoffs.
Yeah.
From founders that get too loose.
And that's wildly unpleasant.
Yeah. It's a lot more painful than just thinking about right now, I've got to run a great business now.
Yeah. Because even if you are hardened, unless you're a sociopath, that's still a little bit painful to do the layoffs.
That's right. It still hurts just as much, but you have, at least when I say hardened, you have an understanding of what's to come in the business and in the process. And I think there's a tendency with first time and even second time entrepreneurs to think, okay, we're 1 or 2 years in, I got 30 million in capital. This will go on forever.
Yeah.
And the point of that capital is to prove you have a real business, not to keep raising more.
Yeah. About a year ago, we were talking on the phone because we were talking about the speech you gave at the Hall of Fame about a year ago. And I made a joke, like, I know you a little bit, but, not that well. But I I go, I get the sense that you might have some ants in your pants, and I don't think you're fit for retirement. I was just guessing, right? And you kind of insinuated, I don't think I'm fit for this either, right? Fast forward to today. What was going through your mind? Was this just an opportunity that was too good to pass up, or did you actually have to, maybe by the order of your wife, get back out there?
A little both.
Okay.
To be honest, I am like the worst golfer. So that's one thing off the table. I haven't put enough time into it. I don't really like it. When people ask me like, hey, come golfing to do business, I'm like, I've never done any business golfing. What I do love is to fly fish. So I have done a lot of business fly fishing. But I find that my energy levels and my excitement for life and my enthusiasm for being an entrepreneur and building businesses is really, really high. And what I found is I don't think that I would have been doing a good service to myself, my family, or my community by sitting on the couch. I ultimately feel like I had less energy and enthusiasm because I think we all, if we're really being honest, we need something to look forward to that's bigger than ourselves. And without that element, it's hard to maximize happiness without the element of I have something big. I'm going to build up a community. I'm going to build up a business. It anchors you in a little bit more enthusiasm for life. And so one thing that I came out of that 1.5-year break, realizing is just how much I needed it. As much as anything else, I need to be involved in that process of building something great. So, and now, a few months in, 2 or 3 months in, I realize I'm just like, man, I am built for this. I love this. This is so much fun. And I've got to keep doing this. And there's something in my heart. This is weird to say, but I feel like it's bigger than me. I'm supposed to do this. It's like sometimes we feel like we have callings in life. If we're fortunate enough to have a calling, shout out to people who don't, that are struggling, right? And trying to figure it out. But I do feel like I have a calling and I need to build something great here in Utah and make a difference.
That's awesome.
One thing I learned about you, I mean, we've known each other for a long time. We managed Gandolfos in neighboring towns and things like that. I wonder, though, it might be useful for people to go through how you initially kind of got ingrained with the local venture community, how you did this. Like you did something that still is like remarkable for me. It's like, I want to get in front of every venture capitalist in the state of Utah. And rather than creating something where I go to them, I'm going to create something where they come to me. And you took over Utah Valley Entrepreneur Forum, rebranded it Utah Venture Entrepreneur Forum, and on the board sat every VC in the state of Utah. And every month they had to come to the board meetings.
Yeah.
And it was, that wasn't the only reason why you did it, obviously, is to get in front of them. But it was, you really built some lasting relationships by doing that, which was fascinating. And really, you were just giving. The whole point of it was just to give to the community, revive an organization that had a long history in the state of Utah, and get the VCs involved. I thought that, talk about your experience with that. That's really interesting.
Yeah. So it brings me to 2 thoughts. One was, that's why I mentioned Grow America, because I didn't actually go out and pitch these other VCs. What I did is exactly what you said, was how can I reverse engineer this process? And how much better would it be if the VC was in my office instead of in their office? And how much better would it be if we could work together? And really, how do seed stage investors make decisions about investments? It's usually a bet on the entrepreneur because the metrics and the historical data and the business isn't established yet. So if you think about it, in the seed stage, my advice to entrepreneurs is create a community around you of people who see you contributing and making a difference, see that you're honest, see that you follow through, see that you focus. And so that's what I did, is I was like, how can I contribute to this nonprofit cause, make a difference, and really see that I can build up an organization. And what the result was is at the end, when I went to raise money, they were all willing to contribute. And that made for an incredible environment. And the other thing is I was able to sit with them and watch them behave. And what they didn't realize is I had a critical eye on all of them. And I was trying to get an understanding of how they responded when things didn't go well, when things did go well, when one entrepreneur was succeeding or wasn't. I was watching how they handled their portfolios. When we recognized people in the entrepreneurial community, were they happy for them or were they upset? Or did they ask me to pull people back? Or what did they do? I was watching that because I thought, I'm going to pick people to build with the next 20 years based on this. And they'd all maybe realize just how closely I was watching all of them. But one thing I realized is they're all a bunch of great guys.
Yeah.
We're really, really lucky in Utah. Great guys. And I ran into a few more of them just last week. And you're right. We're now friends for 10 plus years because of that experience. But it was a really unorthodox way to raise money.
How did it go to raise money from kind of all of the famous, super successful Utah entrepreneurs in the ecosystem? What was that like? How hard was that? What were those calls like? Yeah,
I'm going to tell some funny stories. And I think they'll be okay with it. So,
okay.
One of them was, so with Josh and Todd, they backed me and supported me with Simplus. And so because of that, they both saw some pretty remarkable double-digit returns. And so I just sent them messages and said, hey, I delivered double-digit returns in a really short period of time, 6 years. Doing it again. Would love to have you involved, right? Josh was funny because he gave me the name of an LLC to invest. And then his assistant was like, that doesn't exist. And I was like, Josh, what is this? And I think his aspiration was to set it up, but he hadn't set it up yet. And so I'm over there telling her, I'm like, hey, this is the LLC and this is what he's contributing from. She's like, no, that doesn't even exist. I'm like, well, this is an embarrassing moment. So then I texted him. He's like, oh, yeah. It's this other one. I'm like, okay, cool. You are operating a public company. So he sent me the other one. And what's awesome about people like Josh is he immediately made it happen and contributed to the business. Todd, I went and met with him in Lehigh. Todd is such a friendly guy and he's such a big supporter of entrepreneurs in Utah. Like I can't say it enough. That to me is the magic sauce about Utah is I really don't think and I've seen this time and time again, when I talk to entrepreneurs in other communities, Silicon Valley or Austin, Texas, or New York, or whatever it is, they talk about the VCs. They don't talk about this like huge conglomerate. It's now become a big group of entrepreneurs that are just rooting for each other in this unique way. And so I went to meet with Todd and he's just like, yeah, I got you. Like, $1 million, no problem. Like, just let me know. I'm headed out on vacation, but here's who will make the contribution. Hey, and by the way, here's other other guys who invest with me and they're going to put up $500,000, right? And it was just like, man, how neat is it that I can raise it? And my round wouldn't have been possible without that type of community. Like, I have to say, the amount of money we raised without a lot of VCs would not have been possible without a great community of entrepreneurs backing me and being willing to support our venture. So Todd was great and Jeremy was great. Jeremy and I just caught up at a Silicon Slopes Summit late night. We just had a quick chat and he's like, yeah, I got you, of course. So, and Tanner Ainge, a quick text. Hey, usually I do a lot more due diligence. I'm a private equity guy, but Ryan, you delivered for me last time. I've worked for you. I got your back. Like, wire's ready. So it was cool because there were a lot. One of the things that was rare about our round is we had 30 women in our round. I think that's probably the highest I know of in any round in Utah of female investors. And
That's
I'll tell you what made it unique. I was sitting with Heather Zinzak at a Silicon Slopes event, and she's like, I see the same list of investors. They're all great guys, but what about us? And are women getting enough opportunities to create wealth? In rounds like yours, we don't get a phone call. We usually get a phone call from that seed round for that obscure first-time founder who's like, I got to get money from anyone. And we don't get a call from a repeat founder. And I was like, well, here's your call. And she was actually the first wire to hit our round was Heather. So shout out to Heather. And then from there, I was like, you know what, we're going to grow this. And I called Kareem Clark and she's like, Ryan, like, this is so easy for me. She's like, I have your back all the way. I love working with you. And then I called Trisha Price. I started going down the Whitney Johnson. And of course, my co-founder, Amy Cook, is incredible. And so all of them were like, wait a minute, you got a female co-founder. You guys are repeat founders. And it just blossomed. It went kind of like viral with all these female executives that are incredible. And so that was a unique element of the round.
Tell us about the team. It seems like a lot of people you've worked with in the past. You mentioned Amy. What was the pitch to the people getting this team back together?
That's hard. That was another thing behind the scenes. What I see a lot of times with founders is two things happen. One, either the other people that ran the business with them don't want to say it, but they don't want to work with them again. It's so hard. You go through so many ups and downs. I find, I feel the ultimate compliment to me as an entrepreneur is that these people want to repeat with me and do it again, because we've been through some really hard times. A lot of things that weren't pretty happened to us. And the fact that they want to do it again with me, I am just so honored that they want to do that. The other thing is you can't, when you have an exit, everybody gets their pockets lined. So the other thing is they're also very sought after. So a lot of these founders find themselves that the success actually eats into their ability to keep creating a business. And so you have to have built a strong enough relationship. And I think the key is being proactive. The people that I see as high performers, they never, ever come to me and ask for a raise, because they just get a payroll and it's like, oh, they call me up, Ryan, my payroll was a lot higher than I thought. Yeah, I know. Thank you. That is how it should go down. Those people should never be saying, I need a raise because I got a different offer. I need a raise because I got this awkward annual conversation. The people that you know are high flyers, don't wait. Just take care of them. And so I've tried to take care of those people to the degree that they're like, Ryan, like, I know that you do what you say you're going to do. That's the other thing. One time you tell them you're going to do something and you don't, it's over. So follow through and be proactive. And then those people want to come with you again. And now I feel so lucky because I have 4 founders. They say you're the average of the people you spend the most time with. I have founders that I'm so proud to spend time with that are legitimate entrepreneurs that in their own right could do it without me. I'm fully aware of that. They're all capable of being CEOs. They really could do it without me. And I get to do it with all them. And where that gives me a huge advantage on other entrepreneurs is they care on the weekend. They care at night. I'm not as exhausted because so many times founders have to be the man or the woman. And if I could send a message to entrepreneurs, if you have to be, there's a really big cost to you having to be the one. That cost is exhaustion. That cost is a lack of sleep. I don't suffer alone.
Yeah.
And they help me. They bring me up when I'm down. There was a point in our round where I felt kind of beat up. And to be honest with you, I was irritated by a couple local investors who didn't want to back me. I was super irritated. And I couldn't believe that after all the exits, they still were going to bet against me, right? Mm-hmm. And they were caught up on valuation and they were willing to invest in entrepreneurs who were totally unfit. And to be honest with you, I can already see that they're going to struggle to succeed because of valuation.
Yeah.
And I have no patience for VCs like that. I have no patience. I'll be honest with you. I'm going unfiltered. And those VCs, they were also disingenuous in that they're not actually VCs. And so they will be, and I think they can be very successful. But I was irritated, and I wouldn't be a good entrepreneur if I wasn't.
Yeah.
And I actually love those people personally, but their philosophy and the fact they didn't want to back me upset me. And my founders were like, Ryan, blow it off, move on. And you know what they did? They went all out and raised money. So how rare is that?
Yeah.
Like Amy's like, okay,
Seriously.
here's a couple $1 million. Boom.
Yeah.
Isaac's on the phone. Boom, boom. Lance, same thing. Here's $2 more $1 million. I'm up in Seattle. How often does a founder, I mean, if you think about it, if you're an entrepreneur listening, how many of you have had your co-founders walk in the door and say, here's a few more $1 million I just raised from my own network?
Yeah.
That's the power of taking care of people. And I'll be able to go a lot further because of the team I have around me than I would on my own, no question. But you have to be able to share the light.
Yeah.
What made you decide to raise $34 million? And tell us about the idea of Fullcast, because I'm sure that plays a role in the amount that you raised.
So a couple things. We wanted a business with high gross margins, and it had 90% gross margins. We wanted a software company with recurring revenue that was sticky, that this company had one customer leave them. And we wanted co-founders that were highly technical, product-minded people. They came out of Microsoft and Salesforce, much older than me, had spent a lot of time just in the corporate environment building great products. They were a part of building game-changing products for Microsoft and Salesforce. And I knew that was something I needed on my team. So I was looking for that, and I probably looked through 50 or so founders. My respect for VCs went through the roof too, because I looked at so many opportunities before, like, which one am I going to cut a really big personal check for and bet the next 10 years of my career on? And so it took a while to come to that conclusion, but we finally found founders that were tech and product focused. We found the high gross margins. We found the sticky customers, and we found a product that felt natural to our team. Our team is really good at sales, marketing, and alliances. And so we got super excited about the product. I interviewed a bunch of customers, and the customers were so happy that I was there's a couple times I was jumping out of my seat, excited to sell what we do because of how happy customers were. It was a call with Udemy and Dropbox that I was like, holy cow. The last call with G2 was where I was like, I have to buy this company.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you about what we do. So if you think about it right now, 40 or 50% of sales reps aren't hitting their quotas. They're not achieving quota. It's become actually kind of ridiculously high, the number of salespeople that don't hit quota. And the thesis behind Fullcast is that they're not being set up to succeed. So a lot of times the territories, the way they're set up, and the quotas and the comp plans are very ineffective. And so what we're doing is attacking the quota and territory piece, and we're making it so companies can quickly build great territories for salespeople with the right quotas and help them succeed. Breaking it down by the products they sell, the industries they sell in, the geographies they sell in, and expediting that process. And my belief is when salespeople have extreme confidence that the company has done their due diligence and set up their quotas and territories right, they'll perform better. And so the thesis behind Fullcast is Fullcast customers, their reps, they hit quota at a much higher rate than those that aren't Fullcast customers. So if you're a rep and you work for a company and you're here in Utah or wherever you are, and you see a lot of people not hitting quotas, you need to buy Fullcast. You need Fullcast, and it will transform the way sales teams hit quotas.
Awesome. We could benefit from some of that depending on the time of the year. You mentioned pain points with your co-founders and previous iterations of what you've done. Just like fly fishing, right? Like there are some painful days where you think there's that big German brown.
Yeah.
And you screw it up, right?
Yeah.
And that's a learning.
Yes.
And you have an advantage now that you've gone through a few iterations. Do you, off the top of your head, do you have like 3 or 4 things that you know without a doubt you're going to avoid this time? Or is that impossible?
Yeah, I mean, one of them is the first one that I said is just surrounding yourself with a world-class team and opening the light up for other people to succeed. The other one that I would say is I've heard this a lot lately, and it kind of troubles me. I was at the U with the class, and I did a remote class for Peter Harris and a few other people, and I've heard a few college students asking me, when should I give up? And the thing that I would say is the answer once you take money is never. Here's the thing. Simplus was an enterprise services business. It wasn't a software company. We had no business raising money. We should have given up. That's the thing is our team just doesn't give up. We don't we don't toss in the towel. We're just resilient. So one of the things we did in the past, and I want to do again, is we're going to have multiple iterations of our business model, and we're going to need to be fluid. Simplus was 3 or 4 things before it was a $250 million exit. We're going to have to do the same thing. Fullcast is going to evolve. The product's going to evolve. The industry focuses are going to evolve. How we do things, our business model is going to evolve. So that's one thing I'm ready for and prepared for is there's going to be a lot of change. We're going to have to be open to that. My team is pretty phenomenal, and I'm pretty lucky to have them. And the other thing that we did different is I raised more capital up front, learning that you want to have a fortress around the balance sheet. You need a chest to go to war. And I am going to war for the long term. I'm not going to war for 2 or 3 years and sell my company and have an exit. I'm not interested in that business. I'm in the business of building a public company, and I came to go to war. And that's why we raised more money in the seed round. You were asking me that question, Clint. So we're going to have more capital, a stronger team that won't break when it gets hard to build a big business.
How do you stay motivated? Like, you're the ultimate entrepreneur, and you don't have to do this anymore. And you've kind of answered this in some ways, but what keeps you motivated every day to like, hey, I mean, this amount of energy is infectious. Your team's got to be like, oh, well, I want to run through a brick wall, and I don't work at Fullcast. I'm like, yes, Fullcast is great.
Yeah.
How do you stay motivated? Where does all this come from, do you think?
A couple things that I think about. I have a desire in a people-pleasing way to help the world. I feel like I have the things that I need. I checked all the boxes. I don't want a bigger house. In fact, I got a smaller house after we sold the company. I don't want new things. There's only so many socks you can buy on Amazon. You hit a limit. My family has what they need. I have a spreadsheet where I count the number of millionaires that have been created from our entrepreneurial endeavors. The number's gotten pretty high, much higher than people realize. And I want that to be in the hundreds. I would like to see hundreds of millionaires in Utah come out of the efforts of what Isaac and Ryan Westwood and our businesses create. To me, that's a big motivator. I love when Grant Acosta calls me and says, my family came here with a hope and a dream, and now my kid's college is paid off, and I'm 30 years old, and I never imagined that would ever happen for me, Ryan. I've made wildly more than I thought I ever could. I want more Grant Acostas to come to me and say, my 401k's maxed out, and my kid's college is paid for, and this has been awesome working with you, Ryan. That's my number one motivator, is to change lives and see people really get better. I used to have much more of it being about me in the first part of my career. There is very little that is about me now, and it feels so much better. I feel more like I'm a pure entrepreneur. I feel like I'm more free because I'm not doing it for a paycheck. I'm not doing it for money. It feels liberating because I feel like I'm running more like Braveheart. You know, he had such pure intentions. He was like, you know, people would say to him, you know, how many times did they offer him more land and more money? It was like to give up on his journey. Everybody kept offering him, I'll double your land. I'll make you king. It was power and money. Power and money aren't what I want. I want to build things and help people. And if I give things up for power and money, I won't get to do the big picture. So I feel more like Braveheart, where I want to bleed with my people and fight for freedom than I want to fight for money and power. So that's what's motivating me, is I want to fight for freedom this time. And then the little rogue psychology part of me I described a little bit earlier.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to give my sincere thank you and appreciation to anybody who has doubted us or has told us we couldn't do it. From the bottom of my heart, thank you. Because when you run out of those people, it affects your drive and your motivation. The extra 20% that I need comes from those people. So I want to thank those couple people in this round that churned us down, because my deepest appreciation to you. You will end up helping us as much as the people who put capital in. So thank you.
But that's not even a snarky comment, right? Like
No, that's a wholehearted, non-snarky, genuine comment.
Because it's part of being a human, and part of life is when somebody tells you no, you need people to say no.
You do. You need it. And when you run out of people, when you've had a certain degree of success, it affects your mojo. So you need a few people that still think that your valuation's too high.
Yeah.
Well, look at Elon. I mean, the prime example, like the most successful entrepreneur of our time. All he does is every day is have people telling him no. That's got to be like his number one driver at this point, is it not? It's like,
Yeah.
You can't do it. You can't do it. I mean, look at this comp package that the Delaware
55
courts,
billion.
Delaware courts like said that's too much. But if you look back in 2018, they're like, everybody was saying there's no way you could hit those numbers. So who cares? Do whatever you want.
Yes.
Because you're not going to make any money and you're
No.
not going to be successful. He hits it like incredibly.
Yeah.
And like, no, you don't get that anymore. I mean, that's got to like drive him more than like, I think that's going to be, he's going to look back and like, thank you for not
Yeah.
giving me that comp package.
Well, and a couple things that's interesting about that comp was tied to, like you said, astronomical numbers. So
Yeah.
everybody, the headlines are focused on how much money he would make. But why don't they focus on the enormous increase in market cap and stock price, like through the roof, and all those shareholders making all that money over that period since 2018, and then it comes time to pay the man after he hits these egregious goals, and everyone's like, "Oh man, it's too high." I mean, this isn't new. This tying stock options to CEOs and founders. And them making money and having low salaries. This is an age-old, I mean, this has been happening 80s and 90s. This is the way that entrepreneurs create wealth, and they do it while creating significant wealth for other people. So I do think it's interesting. His brother's on the board, and his board is made up of people that are very friendly to him. It's interesting though, and I'm going to make a few arguments here. Let's talk about this. These boards that have really friendly people on the board.
Mm-hmm.
Mark Zuckerberg, he has the dual class shares. He can trump everybody, right?
Mm-hmm.
Elon is in those scenarios. Even though there's the argument that governance isn't as strong, are some of the biggest, best tech companies that are carrying the stock market right now, the 5 big tech companies are carrying our stock market in America, are created by these founders that have creative liberty to go hard and do things that, by the way, shareholders would restrict them from doing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
This is actually a thesis I have too in the early stage. There's a certain amount of creative freedom that VCs need to give entrepreneurs. Governance, I think all entrepreneurs should sign up to audited financials. You should all have audited financials and be trustworthy and have an outside firm audit your financials. There should be no ambiguity there. But when it comes to the freedom to build, entrepreneurs need that. Coming from my operator hat, you need a certain amount of liberty to explore and figure things out. I think if you get too restrictive in the early stages to VCs, my message is you can severely limit your upside because you make entrepreneurs afraid to make decisions they need to be able to make that are gutsy to get to where you ultimately want them to be. So the governance should come slow in that way later on when you really need to just optimize the business. And in the early stages, it's just really, I think it really hurts the entrepreneur if you put too much restriction on them early.
Well, imagine like you're putting a ton of you just invested however much money as a VC, you put that in, and then you immediately start putting restrictions on them and not believing that they're capable of, running the business on their own where they need all this oversight. Why'd you make the investment?
Yeah. I mean, you have to ask yourself as the VC, why did I do this deal if I feel like I have to be this in their back pocket? Because at that stage, you should be betting only on founders you believe in.
Yeah.
I would argue, even if it's a great business, but a bad founder, I would question whether you do it, because the reason businesses succeed at the early stage is founders that won't give up. I've seen a lot of great businesses that could have succeeded with better founders. I've seen lesser founders really make great businesses just go down the toilet and give up way too soon. It's happening a lot. I don't know if you've noticed.
Oh, yeah.
I'll get these messages on LinkedIn from these founders who are like, yeah, we raised $2-3 million. I didn't find product market fit. We have 100K in ARR and these 5 really good, happy customers. My message is, you have 5 really happy customers. Why are you giving up?
Yeah. Because you sit on a few boards outside of your full-time job, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So you get to live in both worlds. With whatever bandwidth you have, how do you mentor or advise some of these entrepreneurs where you have some equity in their company?
Yeah. So the 2 boards that I'm on are software companies in 2 places I like to vacation the most.
Smart.
So one's in London and one's in Sydney, Australia, my 2 favorite spots. And they're both with entrepreneurs that I really believe in, that I love being around. And they're both at a stage in building their software companies that's beyond where Fullcast is. So it's also giving me insights and keeping my mind sharp on, one represents the next stage of Fullcast and one represents the next stage beyond that. And so when I'm sitting in board meetings and I'm advising the CEOs, it's helping me think, okay, Ryan, here's 2 years, here's 6 years down the road. Here are the things, keep sharp. Don't forget that if you hire for this role 6 years from now, you'd have to lay it off. So it's keeping me sharp. So I have those 2 boards for that reason, to stay sharp about the next stages. And I specifically picked ones that are just beyond where we are and then beyond that to keep me sharp. So really, I see it as part of my Fullcast job. But when I was off, I'm this nerdy about being an entrepreneur. It's kind of, in some ways, embarrassing. But I wrote a 20+ page document in detail about how to be a CEO. It's like here's how you be a CEO operator and everything I know about how to be great at it. And that's the document that I work off of with these CEOs. And one of the things that's been really interesting is to see it work and watch in both cases, these software companies' growth rates just start heading uphill as we put these things in place. And one of the things that's a big tenet of my view on being a CEO is radical transparency. So it makes people really uncomfortable. And it's really, really difficult for some people that are like, this is so weird. You shared the profit margins of the company with an employee who's been here for 2 weeks on a weekly basis. We don't hide behind anything. Everything is out there and open, and everybody sees the numbers and the metrics. It makes people feel trusted, and it enlists them in the problems of the business. Way too often, I think we're arrogant about it, and we're like, man, I'm a leader, so I'm the one that's going to solve all the problems, and I'm going to think about it and sleep on it and worry about it, and then I'm going to come tell my employees how to fix it. And I think if you flip the paradigm and you say, we're all leaders, we're all CEOs, let's all do this. This is everyone's problem, because at the end of the day, if we don't succeed, it's your job too. And then it empowers people. And then, by the way, if you do a layoff, people have known for like 6 months. They've watched the gradual decrease. They're not so upset at you anymore, because they're like, I was watching how that happened, and I know, and it wasn't negligence. They didn't ignore it. They didn't come out of a dark closet and suddenly announce these shocking, groundbreaking layoffs.
Yeah.
I literally watched the metrics from pipeline to close one deals, through the bookings to recognized revenue to everything in the business. I'm like, man, I watched that happen. I know why it happened. I know why I'm getting laid off. And I already told my wife 2 months ago it was possible. Very different feel than if you're keeping that with your leadership team. So I subscribe to we have what's called the open management meeting, and it's basically an executive meeting in front of everyone.
Very cool.
That's fascinating. Last question. What role does faith play in your life?
Oh, man. Thanks for asking that question. It's kind of the underpinning to everything that makes me who I am. If I think about faith, it's been the reason that I've tried to be a better person. Without faith, I think Ryan Westwood is a shell of what maybe I've been able to become. It has pushed me to want to be better. It's pushed me to want to be more like Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ is my inspiration. Jesus Christ to me is the person I always want to emulate. And even though I don't always act like him, I want to be like him. And I strive to be like him. And even though I have many weaknesses, I have a tendency to be a very competitive person. And that sometimes I have to keep in check to be like Jesus Christ. But that helps me be a better person. It pushes me and it fuels me to want to be better every day. It is my reason for being, and underpinning who Ryan Westwood is my faith. So thanks for asking that question. I could probably talk a lot longer about it, but I think without it, I'd be a pretty lost human being.
Ryan, love you, brother.
Love you too, brother.
So many people are going to get so much out of this episode. That was incredible. Thanks for coming by.
Thanks
really
for
appreciate
having me.
it.
Appreciate it.
And for those watching, make sure you check out the Utah Warriors. Their season's coming up. That's who sponsored today's show, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Were you guys running when I walked in?
Yeah.